Islam, first thing I want to say, astrology, cosmology is Moorish science. And I know that you've heard that, the term Moorish science over and over again. An interesting thing is a lot of Moors who are conscious don't know that. Shows you how much we have not studied. The other issue is that civilization itself is built on that. That's the other thing that you need to know. The other thing you need to know is that religion is built on that. And the other thing that you need to know is that the rulers don't tell the masses that. Because if they told the masses that, you'd been free a long time ago, and we wouldn't need all these freedom organizations that don't work. So I want you to know that. Now, the interesting thing with the Brother Akbar, who really carries a master's degree in what he's dealing with, the interesting thing is that a lot of people don't know that this is health science. It is actually the science of the planet. And it's also an anatomia, or a knowledge of yourself, like you've also often heard when you deal with the mystery schools, or you deal with ancient Asia, Kemetan science. One of the things that's always said to you is, man, know thyself. And this is the science used by the ancient ones to know yourself. Because it's a mirror. It's a mathematical, spiritual, reflective mirror of yourself. And so it does not deal with ego, and it does not deal with vanity. It deals with what's there. And so when you chart, the principle is, it's a map. It gives you a map of the character that you are, that your mother made you. And it gives you your, what you call highs and lows, like the universe ebbs and flows. It pulses in and out. And what you must know, those rhythms are calculated. And that comes from the energies of the planets. Now, as you've known in religious instruction, you've heard the term Eloah, or Elam. Now, Elam is the plural for Eloah. And Eloah is the single for the 7 creative spirits, or what they call 7 eyes of Allah, or what you see very commonly in Asiatic culture, where you see we use the 7 as a primal number, and a lot of people use it but don't necessarily know what they're using. When I say they don't know what they're using, it doesn't mean they don't mean well, but scientifically they're not aware of its actual function. So I'm telling you what its actual function is. The 7 represents the 7 Eloah, which is the 7 ruling planets in this solar system of the 10. And the names for those 7 ruling planets are, and for the common man, common people, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
How you said it spelled?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Eloah is E-L-O-A-H. That's singular. For Elam, or what people call in the Heliotech, what you call the Bible, Elohim, but there is no H in Hebrew. And it's Elam. So that's E-L-O-H-I-M, which means God.
That's plural.
Allah, the creative forces. Now, that's what it really means. Now, when you, like say when you look in the Heliotech, in the book of Revelation, and you see Yahushua, who the translators call Jesus, his name is Yahushua. And Yahushua had in his right hand 7 stars, and he was standing amongst 7 candlesticks. That's Elam. So I'm telling you what the symbols are, what they are in fact. But the real deal is that's your science. Now, when the Inquisitionists started the Inquisition, you had 3 phases of Inquisition. You know, you had the medieval, etc. But the real Inquisition, that approach that dealt with you all, that is you all, the family, is called the Spanish Inquisition. And the reason it's called the Spanish Inquisition, because the Roman ruler, Philip II, declared when the Moors were defeated that they would no longer be called Moors. That's in 1511 AD. And declared that all Moorish property, all Moorish wealth, all Moorish legacy, all Moorish literature would be claimed by the Vatican and by Spain. And so Moorish Latin which is your language, aside from Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic, the major language of these Asiatics here in North America who think that they're black but are not, is Moorish Latin. Incorrectly called Spanish. And that's how Latin became called Spanish. And a lot of the other Moors who are mixed, the Borinquans, Tainos, etc., who think that they're Puerto Ricans, etc., they're Moors too, they're your family. It's not Spanish, it's Latin. Like you go to any botanica in Latin communities and you see them candles, they're Moroccan candles because that's your history. So you need to understand that, so that a lot of things that you don't know, you need to know, because in order to be united with the world, you must go back to the honor of your mothers and fathers. But you can't if you don't know who they are. Islam.
I hate Islam. I hate it.
No, hit it, because that's how we work.
Introduction. However, when I go to the botanicas, right? It's like something that had a natural inclination to go with.
Yeah.
You know, of course I listen to the lectures and things of that nature, but I just had a natural inclination to go talk with the people or to see what they're.
Because that's your family.
Something that, you know, and that's why I recommended people.
That's your family. And if you really pay attention, a lot of that is the Asiatic culture that they call African culture. Now, this other thing that you need to understand, and this is like a lot of brothers and sisters, just like you see that was mentioned to you when we refer to the family as Asiatics, right? How many of you know why? Because I know you hear it, and you hear some people, some scientists, or some scholars say Asiatic black man, which is a misnomer, because that's a fraud. Because black is the Asiatics after they fell to slavery. That indicates a slave from a free man. So whenever you see an Asiatic that's branded Negro, black, or colored, you know who the slave is, aside from the free person who honors their mothers and their fathers. Because free people who honor their mothers and fathers do not use crayons as an identity. Only children, minors, mental misfits. No, this is the truth.
Yes.
This is the truth. If you're going to know the truth, you're going to get it. And if you don't know the truth, you'll never be free. So we don't play with games and emotions. We deal with the truth.
What was the original question you asked? What is?
Why are you called Asiatics? You know, Asiatics, like your brother. I talked to his brother on the phone. I got papers so far, I'm going to remind you that. But I want to make this point to you. Why are you called Asiatics?
I think because Africa and Asia is connected.
Correct to a degree. So let me school you. Do you know anything about Hannibal the Moor? Hasdrubal? The Punic Wars?
Yes.
That's wars that took place before the Crusades.
Right.
That led up to the Crusades. Remember, these are a series of the same wars.
Right.
The Punic Wars. Right on up to the Christian Crusades. Right on up to the Battle of Tours, 732, near Poitiers, France.
What war is it?
Right.
Punic.
Punic. P-U-N-I-C.
Oh, I see.
Get familiar with it because it's your history. And then you got to understand why your science has been removed from you, because it rules the planet Earth. That's how important it is. And I want to make this note, not just for you, but for the master here. Your brother got 2 master's degrees. And he's teaching health, and you'll be surprised how closely it is connected, because this is what doctors actually use when they analyze you. But they'll never tell you that. So I want you to pay close attention to what Sister Ross is going to give you, because you know how the Bible says, physician, heal thyself? Guess how much it means that? Absolutely spot on.
Right.
In the book of Genesis, and in the book of, I think it's Deuteronomy, we give you the food laws when it says, every herb-bearing tree shall be meat for you. In other words, everything that is here that comes to you generally as a sickness comes from 9 times out of 10 what you eat. 9 times out of 10. Unless some outside injury comes to you. So you need to know your body, and you need to know the earth, and you need to know the cycles of the planets and the energies that affect the earth and the seasons in order to know yourself. That's why it says there's a season for everything. Everything has its season. But you must understand that. then when you see the cross that they use in Christianity like that, it don't mean what you think it means. It means the 4 gates. Do you understand what I'm saying? So don't get spooked about it, and don't think that because somebody else uses it that it ain't yours, because that's yours too. And that's really the Holy Cross.
So how, does that take away anything from the cross when they put this dead person on?
No, it explains it, because I could explain that to you too, because that's actually movement of the planets. Meaning that Yeshua,
Yeah, they have
the prophet who they intended to murder,
the dead man on the
who they intended to murder,
Yeah,
they never really successfully killed him,
I didn't.
because we took him off. And we took him, the white brotherhood took him, of which he was a part, because he was a white man. But it's not a European. White is a status. And that's another thing that you have to be very clear on. It's a status. It has nothing to do with complexion. You're a white man until you all fell to slavery. Now you're black. That's what your slavery is. It's a status. And our people need to understand that, because if you want to understand the science that runs this planet, you need to know the language that really runs this planet. That you may have assumed to be something that it is not. And by you not knowing the language, because the culture is in the language, that is how they lock you out without putting a chain on it. So understand, being introduced to your science is freedom on many fronts, more than what it appears to on the surface. Furthermore, in secret societies, the coded messages that they get and the coded passwords is really relative to this very science. The church, when you talk about cardinal in the church, is based on this science. When you talk about deacon in the church, based on this science. Those are code words. And they know it too, but they will never tell the people in the audience.
Thank you.
Do you understand? When you walk and you see church doors, and you see the church doors with red doors, you know what that represents? That represents the blood that mother produces every 28 days, 2 hours and 52 minutes with the cycle of the moon, and drops an egg to produce humanity. And the 2 pillars you see at the door, they are her legs.
And so I heard at the lecture that the shape of the church doors is like the entrance to the...
It's the uterus. It's entrance to the
Right.
uterus.
Yes.
And you see the pews on both sides? That's the ovary, left and right, with her offspring.
Yes.
Now those are the real truths. And so when you know the truth, you'll be free, because you're no longer spooked. And also, people can't take your lunch money.
Right.
Well, it's like it is. Then you don't need a middleman. So this science is being presented to you by Sister Rosamariah, and she's been teaching astrology for quite a few years. An interesting thing about her, because she's always taken an humble position, is I remember a few years talking to her earlier that because it's natural to her, you know how like some people don't recognize what they have? And I'm not saying that she doesn't recognize what she has, because she does. At a time, I felt that she didn't recognize what she had. Not that she didn't in the sense of what its value is, but how serious it is relative to the operations of world's governments, because most people who know it don't relate the two, because it's never presented to you that way. And most people don't know that it's true religion. It's real Islam. It's real Judaism. It's real Christianity without the colonial powers. And none of them will tell you that. The rulers won't, because you won't take care of them and Susie at the Bahamas. But, you know, so they tell you they want to give Jesus his half. No, that's for Susie, because they're going to the Bahamas. You know, this is, well, it's really true. You know, and this is where the Nazarenes say, know you the truth, and the truth will set you free. Because once you know these truths, you don't need a middleman no more. This is also what the book says, physician, heal thyself. Now, the issue is, the reason why you call it Asiatics is because, and as you said, they're connected. Well, this is the connection. All of the planet is called Asia. And then you have territorial Asia. Asia Major is where Tiani is, which you call China. And Puro, that you call Hindustan, which you now call India, and Lower Asia Minor is Tameri, or what you know as Akibalan, which you call now today falsely Africa.
That's it.
And so you think you're Africans.
Tamoi, yeah.
Yeah, Tamari. It's like Merry Christmas. Tamari. And so you are Asiatics first. Now, back to the wars. When Scipio Africanus, the Roman ruler, defeated the Moors, the tradition was to put the name on what they conquered. And this would be added to the middle name, or just before the last, the cognomen. And this was a trophy. And so when they conquered Queen Dodo's territory, because Queen Dodo is the one who had the territory that was established on northwest South Asia. And she came from Tyre. That's why you hear a lot of times in the secret societies talk about the king of Tyre. Well, Dodo was his daughter, and she was the queen of that area that you call Egypt, Liberia, Morocco, Tunis, etc., that northern coast. And when they conquered the Moors, they named that area Africa, after Scipio Africanus, the Roman ruler. However, the real Africa that they named was actually where you're standing. That's the Masonic secret. So you're standing in Africa. And that never really was Africa, until they twisted the maps. That's what your mental slavery really is. And that's what the Masonic secret is. That's why nobody won't tell you. Because if they told you, you'd have been free a long time ago and still thinking you had to go to Mars to go home.
Does the Black Masonic brothers know this?
Let me tell you, all scholars know this. There's a lot of scholars, well, let's put it this way. Let's be honest. You know, sometimes, like say for instance, you write a book, right, brother? And a company forwards you 600 grand and gives you 6 months to write the book, and then they give you more, you know, later on when the book is published, and you get a percentage. And you start writing a book about these Asiatics being black and Negro and light-skinned black people and colored people, whatever you are this week. You're not exactly inspired to tell the truth, are you?
No.
Now, let me give you a 3rd grade school lesson. Any one of you can go home into any of those older dictionaries that your mom has and some ones that you throw out and look at black that these people think that they are. And a 3rd grade lesson in grammatication, it will tell you that it's an adjective. But a 3rd grader knows that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. Right. And if black's an adjective, you don't even need to go into the definition because it can't be your identity. However, you do have a lot of adults with the minds of minors, like little boys and girls, who actually think some nation called Blackadonia exists somewhere in Africa. Or Negrodina and Caladifia, with some flag that flies at the United Nations that represents such fictions, and no such people exist on this planet. On the moon either. Those are brands. But once you get a body of people to think that that's a reality, you know, it's not hard to tell them that Santa Claus is real either, and that bunny rabbits lay chicken eggs. And they'll spend millions of dollars. Meanwhile, they'll tell you they know God. So you know how we look to the rest of the civilized world. Even though we arrogantly do those things with self-confidence. Because we know Jesus and nobody else do.
That's right.
We're saved and nobody else is.
He's real.
But our babies are dying younger and younger in the streets. But we lie to them and tell them they're saved too. But of course, people don't have the nerve to tell us to our face that we're, the only thing black about us is our hearts, because we're black hypocrites and liars. It's true, because we like to fight too. You know, somebody tells us the truth about ourselves. We like to talk about other people. They tell us the truth about ourselves, how really ignorant we are. They know that we are not nice people to get mad because we do stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And I guarantee you that the very things that we're saying to you today, all religious leaders know. Imams, reverends, priests, industrialists, politicians, all of them are Masons and Eastern Stars. And don't you think that they're not. And don't you think that they don't know this knowledge, because they're given it, except they pay thousands of dollars for these degrees that are given to you today for nothing, almost.
Right.
And in a short period of time. Now, whether your mind is open or not, that's on you. But I'm just telling it like it is. But the deal of it is, it ain't no insult, is it? That a man got a belly button, is it? So if we want to sit up here and talk the crap that they've given us, you know, about Adam, you know, if it wasn't for Adam, Eve wouldn't be here because she got one of my ribs. That's why I limp when I walk, and all that kind of stuff. He got a belly button. What made that belly button? Oh, well, that's proof, isn't it? You need to believe that. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. Only thing makes that mark right there, that birthmark, is a placenta, which is a physical planet. And the only thing on this planet that produces a physical planet is woman herself, the most powerful being on this planet. Problem is she don't know herself. The problem is we all bought into the idol god worship crap and fell and trying to figure out how to get out of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? But our arrogance won't allow us, not that it's not there to be seen, our arrogance won't allow us to deal with reality and respect woman for who she really is. And she won't respect herself for who she is because she's adopted the idol god worship crap.
He got his hand raised, so I got some other stuff to do.
Oh, all right. All right, good. All right, so I'm going to, one more question, then I'm going to open up.
There's a couple of questions. Does this explain, I know, like, from reading about Egyptian culture, that they worship patriarchal rather than, so this all stems back with, also with the Black Madonnas.
Yes, all deities, Venus, etc., just like you see in the Vatican, and you see the old statues of Venus with the arm broken off. So guess what? That's modern. Don't you know there's large compound tonnage of statues here all throughout the Americas of Venus?
You got some in North America? I thought this
That's buried.
Yeah, but they said a lot of it is in the...
Misconcept.
Okay.
All ancient deities are feminine. Even in Africa, in Southwest Africa, the Amazon queens is what ran government. When you look at all of our tribes here, whether you deal with the conglomeration of the Algonquian tribes or you deal with the Iqua tribes, any of the tribes of Moors, were matriarchal. In other words, not that even in Tamari, whenever we did anything, we built cities, or even we went to war, we had to confer with the queens first, because they're the ones that assigned the chieftains. Nothing was done without conference with the queens, because that's nature. It has nothing to do with a choice of politics. It's harmony with nature. When we lost harmony with nature, we lost our power. And we really honestly need to understand that. A lot of times when people look at this thing, we look at it from a perspective of political choice, and we've got to get out of that. But we've got to recognize that this is demanded by nature herself. And when you get out of harmony with nature, she will kick your keisters because you don't play with her. But of course, when we adopted the idol god stuff, we think that whatever we choose to believe, we can make it be. We have the mental power to create some things and to make it be, but we get the hell that comes with it. Because you don't violate the laws of nature and not get a consequence. Because this universe operates on cause and effect. And when you think it doesn't, play with it. And so the deal is, we are here to solve, quote unquote, the so-called Negro problem. And it can only be really solved with truth. I mean, we have to go back to that state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers without the BS that we've layered it with belief systems that have nothing to do with true origin. And so, if you're going to tell the truth, tell the truth. If you ain't, play the game and watch this stuff continue. And she's going to start killing our babies even younger, so make sure our little evil asses don't come back here. No, isn't this the truth? So you got to understand how nature works, because she's not playing. And so the deal is, if you want to save these generations, because they still certainly represent you, because it ain't joking. You ain't bearing a lot of people with gray hair no more. You're bearing over half of them that ain't even reached 25. And nature's warning us. Now, we can keep playing this idol god crap that we want and lying that we saved and all this stuff, that we got Jesus and Allah and nobody else do. Keep it up. Because she will make sure that you're extinct. And so anything that's walking this planet that continues to call itself Negro, black, and colored won't be breathing in the next decade or so. Now that's the real truth. Of course, That's honesty, and that's blunt. So the deal is to turn your hearts back to your mothers and fathers, that you do not continue the actions that will continue and cause this curse to smite this earth, because that's what's happening. You ain't seen no floods and storms and stuff yet. You just seen a taste of it. Because everything that we look at from a material perspective that we think we're going to maintain by maintaining our BS lies is going to come down, including our fake securities. You know what I mean? So like when you look, when you look at in ancient Kemet, what they call Africa today, just like you see that Ankh, and people walking around talking about the Ankh. Well, the Ankh is a uterus, 2 fallopian tubes, and a birth canal. That's a matriarchal rulership. Ain't got a daggone thing to do with her sons. In other words, like this. If you really want to know the truth about birds and the bees, let's talk about this. And we were talking about this earlier. Let's deal scientifically. Now, you know scientifically that no male egg exists in nature, in any species. You know that, right? You didn't know that? Who other people didn't know that in here? You didn't know that? That no male egg exists in nature? You didn't know that? Do some research in science. There is no male egg in nature. All eggs that's in all female entities are females. They're reproductions of herself. Now, let me finish and then you answer your question. What she does, based on aspects, that means configurations of planets in conjunction or in relationship to each other in the energies of the planet. And that relative to Venus, the bright star, bright morning star, and the moon, which governs the flow of fluids and the dropping of her eggs from either left or right of the ovaries through metamorphosis of her energies and thoughts. She may mutate that female egg and do what is called the miracle. That's what they mean by the virgin birth. Really means she makes a miracle and makes a male out of a female for some other female to mate with. In other words, she produces her own mate. Absolutely no different than you see in, I give you a lesson of the birds and bees. And make it quick because I want to bring the queen on. Queen bee in all species. All the eggs and all the workers, the same thing with ant colonies, are females. The queen just reproduces. And when they need to expand the colony, they pick a few chosen females and they bring them to a chamber and they put them in the middle and they run circles around them and they vibrate and they feed them royal jelly. It's real food, honey, royal jelly. And they vibrate around them. Now they don't know how it happens, but it's true. And those females turn to males. Then they mate with them and make more. And guess what? That's the same thing happens with Jews, just that you don't know yourself. This is why women always outnumber us. So you need to know that truth.
I agree with what you're saying, but one particular animal, they kind of do it different as far as with the...
where they mutate and become a male and female. Certain frogs do that. Certain lizards,
but the seahorse too. The seahorse.
Seahorse does that.
What is it? The female like shoots her eggs into the.
When it's needed, but it's always a female, and another fish does that too. Will turn into a male during that breeding season, and they do the same thing. They vibrate. Now, the point that it's saying to you is there's workings in nature that we need to be familiar with and understand in order to understand ourselves. But it is only the reason why we don't understand a lot of things is because we've been steeped in belief systems that have nothing to do with mathematical sciences. When you go into the sciences, all that you need to know is already there for you. You know, like the Bible saying, the Quran saying, the Uwasbi saying, look around you and know that I'm God. I mean, if you study your environment, there's your mathematical proofs there. But we keep looking for mysteries because we were presented with mysteries. Well, life is not a mystery. It's only a mystery because we won't deal with science. Do you understand what I'm saying? But once you deal with science and that which is, there is no other argument. At any rate, before she gets sleepy, because I know his sister, she was up. This sister, I mean, up like 6 o'clock, working. I'm telling you, she's amazing. And then here she is again. So I want to introduce to you a person that I have great respect for, and does more work than you'll ever see, that you'll ever imagine that she does. And she's sort of like this. I like to pick with her sometimes, because like she's a good friend, but she's like a mom too, even though she don't know it. And she reminds me of a school teacher. But she's an excellent teacher, and she won't say it, but I recognize it, you know. And I know that you'll get a good lesson and you'll get a good understanding. If you got pens and pencils, use them, because she's going to give you what you need to bring a lot of remedies, and particularly sisters, particularly young sister, because actually you all actually have to save us. So a lot of times when you see us sons up here, you know, we doing our thing because we're soldiers. You know, that's where we are. Our little testosterone does that, and we think we got a couple of marbles. You know, we get out there, but in nature, really, you're really ruling, and you need to understand that. Because whatever we do, you give us to do. So that's really the truth. So we're not offended because we know who we are. You know, that doesn't affect our masculinity, and we're not threatened whatsoever. A man is not threatened by that. A punk is. You understand? Ain't no punks here. So get your lessons, get real. Let's recognize that civilization itself is matriarchal, not patriarchal. And if you're going to get spiritual and really understand spirituality, you really want to understand Islam, you want to really understand Yehudism, that they call Judaism, if you really understand the crystal mind, you must have a feminine thought. Because everything that comes in this planet comes through the Stargate. Woman is the Stargate. So it's important that your frame of mind be right. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's important that you know what you're doing. Understand what I'm saying? It's important that you know what you're bringing here. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not because I'm saying it, because the math says it. So you've got to respect that, and you've got to go back to those thought principles, because whatever we need to fix here, you have the capacity to bring it through those gates, both the physical and the unseen. That's how powerful you are. Brothers and sisters, this is your first course in the ancient sciences of your mothers and your fathers. Astrology, which is astrologics, which is star logics. Means star common sense. And here's your master teacher, Melaninated Bey.
Gee, thanks. First, Islam, peace, and love to all. It's my great one. Second, thanks for that. My mother was a school teacher, though, so you know that kind of wears off. But no, he's right about that. The other thing is, brother answered your questions, but I want to expand on that for just a second.
Because that makes it work, yeah.
Because I felt something in you with about, you know, the amalgamated, yeah. Your mother, we're the mothers and fathers of civilization, correct?
Right, yeah.
Do we say that we are?
Yes.
All right.
Do we say?
That's your answer?
Don't we research and say that we found out that, you know, we're the mothers and fathers of civilization? So then they're your children. Amalgamation, mixing. But if they were to go back in their history, they find you and they don't hide it. Go over to Spain, for instance. You know, we say that because he mentioned it more to Spain, because that's where by name, when you go do research, you were cut off. Because you start seeing them talk about the Moors of Spain, right? And you see those people as fair-skinned amalgamated people, right? So you don't relate yourself, right?
No.
All right. But that's you. And if you go there and they do their history and give you a history book or do some research, they're going to show somebody who look like you. They don't hide it. And then the ones that were converted because of the conquest, that we had conquest here, they had conquest there. Spanish Inquisition started and long reached all the way back and forth across the whole continent, really. They called them Moriscos, or Moriscos, spelled M-O-R-I-S-C-O or M-R-R-E-S-C-O. So that's the same equivalent, right? Same equivalent to calling us Negroes. So what that says is that the whole purpose of this conquest was to do the same thing, is to take people's nationalities away. It's just that we got disconnected, and then when they started teaching you the history here, they didn't include anything, they didn't tie you. So you start reading You start reading stuff about Turks and Ottomans and Spaniards and Amarabites and Amarahays, and you think it has nothing to do with you.
It's not fractions, a lot of.
Those are other political, family, tribal, if you will, names that were applied to the mothers and fathers of civilization, you and your ancestors. But you don't know that. So when you read it, you just go right over there because you think you're disconnected. But it's because my people perish for lack of knowledge. So these are the things that study, you would find out. Here's the real kicker. If you open the encyclopedia and read that, they don't hide it. If you look at the definition, it's not hidden. It says the Moors of Spain, for instance, which we are related to. It'll tell you where they came from. Northern Africa, Mauritania, Mesopotamia, Berbers, Arabs. It's 7 different things they call you in one definition.
Saracens, yeah.
Saracens. It's all in the Carthaginians, all of it. It's not hidden. The problem is we do not connect ourselves to our ancestral names, or our ancestors, and our family names. It's really not that complicated. Now when you do connect yourself, now you've got your history. So anybody who goes back and studies, any scholar that stands before you that studies, if they don't come back and tell you that, then they have some other agenda. And part of it is because we looking at a bunch of people that don't have a lot of courage. But I'm going to tell you about that in the cosmologically speaking. And then I got you. And then your question in reference to where these statues were found in the catacombs. Just know this: North, South, and Central America is America. This is the hub of civilization. These lands. So in the Central was mostly where a lot of the experiments were, and a lot of the the laboratories were genetic. I'll say exploration. Hybrid experiments, which really created the mankind, because you're man, and then there's mankind. 2 distinct different things. Mankind, kin to man. Kin to man. Genetics that they say they learned now, you don't think that your mothers and fathers, the ancestors, did that? What do you think Genesis is? Genesis is genetics. Genes of Isis is Genesis. You don't think, didn't the scripture tell you there was nothing new under the sun? Right? So we were doing the genetic, I don't like to say experiments.
They were hybrid experiments,
right,
dealing with plants, animals, and finally with the human, which is how the Romans were made.
Exactly. Do you really? That's it. So then that's another whole lesson. And I see the crowds going. You've heard of Jacob's experiment, Yakub.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's where the Yakub comes in.
That's what it is.
You heard
Elijah Muhammad wasn't north when he
Central America.
It's just that we didn't have other
Absolutely
keys.
true.
We didn't have other keys. In addition, what else is associated to that? Darwin's theory.
Okay.
From their perspective. And then it leaves that there was a missing link and this and that. And you know good and daggone well you did not come from well actually what's the proper name? They say H, but the proper name is
troglodyte nigger.
Now, right there. Look that up in the encyclopedia and it'll tell you it's the hybrid, and they say in it that they are nothing but hybrids. It's not hidden. This is not hidden information. Well, it is and it isn't.
It's only hidden because they don't talk about it.
Right.
Openly.
But it doesn't mean it's not true. So Darwin theories come from their perspective to explain that. And then you have a newfound interest in the island of Dr. Moreau. You know, because that's what studying does for you. You know what I mean? All right, peace. And so I wanted to just answer that to you. Oh, no, I want to show this first. This right here. And that's the leader, right? I'm glad you found that, because that's what I was doing. So I wanted to answer that for you, that North, South, and Central, as his brother explained about, Africa. Everybody want to go back to Africa, but then we all know that was named after European. So, Ada, what is up? We got to go further than that, because we're the mothers and fathers of civilization, so you don't stop. You don't even stop in Egypt. Yes.
I was just going to ask you how you spell amalgamation.
Amalgamation. A-M-A-L. G-A-M-A-T-I-O-N. See, I told you my mother was a school teacher. We had to spell that stuff.
That means mixing?
Mixing, amalgamate something, is to mix. Why do you think this was called the Great Melting Pot? Why do you also think in your studies this is called a mixum, a mixing, Mexico? See? It's all, so all the things we're saying is not our opinion, these are facts, and they prove themselves. Just start thinking.
Can I add this?
Sure.
Remember, like a lot of times, how many of you are familiar with the Quran? All right, you know how like when we gather up the blue eyes, when they gather up the blue eyes, like you see in some secret societies, where they have the blue eyes with a swathed cloth around them and they run them across the desert, and they're on camelback, all right, or like you see in the Bible where it talks about the lepers, where we gather them together and put them on an island or behind the rock until their legions were all white, the leper. Or you see in Ireland where they talk about the leprechaun and also the running of snakes out of Ireland. Well, all of this is really coded your history, their history, and their interchange with you. And so after the experiments, because of the sudden onset of diseases that were not part of the human experience prior to that, and it was tuberculosis, gonorrhea, and syphilis. And because they needed to deal with these newfound diseases because of the experiments between the troglodyte nigger and the human. So the troglodyte nigger and the human was blended. And when they blended the troglodyte nigger and the human, you had two problems. The sun was trying to kill the nigger because the nigger had no more melanin, because the melanin of the nigger is in the fur. And so when you remove the fur, the nigger's skin has very little melanin in it, and the sun, in this terrestrial plane, you need melanin or the sun will kill it. It operates just like an immune system. Do you understand? And so the niggers were dying at an alarming rate, and they were developing leprosy, or what you call today melanoma. And so we gathered up the blue eyes and took them to Patmos, or to the Isle of the Fall, which you know today as the land of the Angles, that is called Ingla land, that you know now as England. Now, the troglodyte nigger, if you do research in any good encyclopedia, is the caveman. And so, biologically and factually, the troglodyte nigger is the black chimpanzee monkey, or what is known as Negro Llavero Areba, or the troglodyte nigger. And that's how the word nigger came into the language. The caveman is the nigger. When the apes took over the planet and started ruling, they traded places with you and called you nigger. And when you accepted it, you lost your birthright.
Real quick, can you spell troglodyte?
TR, they also please. What everyone.
And you know, like we were saying earlier, that's a whole nother lesson that we really need to present to you as well, because these are facts that you can look up yourself and find to be true. If you look up troglodyte, you're going to find them say that that is them. It's not. It's in there, and that they know that they are
Troglodyte. Troglodyte nigger.
So that's really a European, is what you're saying.
Yes.
What's the scientific name?
That is it. Anthropopithecus is the scientific word.
And so what's the difference between the Anthropopithecus?
It's called It's also called Cro-Magnon.
Is the same thing?
Paleolithic. That's where you get paleface from. Paleolithic, and Neanderthal.
And they're all the same people.
They're all the same. They're those branches of the experiment in stages, and there is no missing link. The missing link is your knowledge of the history and the experiment. But the Christians burned so many books that it is not available to the common public, but all scientists and all rulers are absolutely aware of the experiments. And they're also aware why Europeans die in North America at a rate of around 95,000 a year due to the sun killing them. Because they're mutants in nature. They were designed for us to blend back with. But when they chose to be God and started the Roman isolation codes, which they teach the public as segregation, they stopped the cycle of the blending. And in doing so, nature is killing them because they weren't designed for permanence.
That's suicide themselves.
They were designed to blend.
The mixing pot.
Now that's another part of the secret that people won't tell. So most of us have nigger in us, but we're not niggers. You must understand that.
Now let me get back to why we brought that up in the first place, all right? Because this is another lesson.
They're really contrary to what they say. It's in the thousands.
They have it like 1.4 million or something. Lucy.
Well, that's the bones, but that's not European.
Okay, that's what I'm at.
That's what you have to understand. In other words, anything that you're going to find ancient is the Asiatic woman. Anything that you're going to find that lives here came from her.
Isn't it, what is it, Niger River? Isn't it Niger River?
Rio Negro, at Manaus in Southwest Africa, that the people call South America, Southwest of Mexico, that is Brazil, in the United States of America, Brazil, near Manaus, the city of Manaus, where the Amazon River and the Rio Negro meet or merge in Manaus in Southwest Africa. And in that area is mainly where you had, particularly in that area and in the Yucatan, was mostly dominated by Amazon queens. That's where you get the amazing queen or amazing grace thing from. Actually, that's what that really is. Because it was matriarchal rule. That was the Moabite nation. Remember, the Moabite nation was the planet. After the blending or the amalgam experiments that took place mathematically in the Pyramid of the Sun in Yucatan and what you call Mexico. But the actual biological experiments, most of them took place, the mathematics took place there, but most of the physical experiments took place on the islands, on the Archipelago, and in the United States of Brazil, and along the Amazon River and the Amazon Valley, or what you know as Patagonia, which is closer to Argentina, which Argentina, when the Moors ruled, was Patagonia. So the European really has no origin in Europe. His origin is actually South America. But also that's kept secret from the people. So we gathered them, and then we had to abandon some of the cities in Central America in ancient times because of those experiments, and they shut the cities down. So there are cities in Central America that are actually under the jungle that's never been torn down, just abandoned. And we took them to Albion. And their first name is Albion. That's where the name albino come from. And if you look in ancient history, you'll see that England is called Albion. Oh, of course it is. So now, and so understand this. She's going to give you a lesson on this, but understand this. So the troglodyte nigger is the black chimpanzee monkey and the caveman. Look it up in the dictionary. Now, look up in an Oxford dictionary, hybrid. And it'll give you in about the sixth definition in the hybrid, and it'll say the Englishman is but a heterogeneous hybrid. They don't really hide it. Problem is our people don't know about the experiments, so they can read past it and they don't know what they're looking at. He knows that he's a hybrid. That's why they have to constantly do experiments to try to save themselves from the sun. Do you understand? So you must understand that your complexion is really a terrestrial spacesuit because you weren't always here. But it's built in. And without it, you cannot survive in this terrestrial plane because the different rays of the sun, there's also colors that you can't see that exist that have an effect actually with the skin because you can also be fed through your skin. These are other things that you need to know about yourself. But if you're not in harmony with this atmosphere, it will kill you. No different than a white corpuscle kills you in your blood system. When it sees a mutant in your blood or an invasion, it attacks it. That's why the sun attacks them. That's one of the reasons we had to move them to the land of the Angles, because it was always under fog, always raining. And so they could survive. But again, many of them went wild. That's why the caveman is the European, or the troglodyte nigger. And it's just that when they came in power, because of our abuse of power. You got to understand, a lot of things that the Europeans do to us wasn't because they're just being bad. We weren't exactly goody-goody guys ourselves. We held them in servitude first. It's just that, you know, what goes round comes round. And so when they stole the history, they also stole the good with the bad. And so the assumption with these Asiatics here is that he just held us in slavery. Well, half of that was his. You know, that's why they hide your history. But also, that's why your seals are on the dollar bill and nobody speaks of it. But right now, the Asiatics are asleep. But ain't nobody going to tell them, truthfully, because they're the real sovereign. But the point of it is, understand this. Black chimpanzee monkey is the troglodyte nigger. The caveman and the caveman descendants are the troglodyte nigger. The European is the nigger. The Asiatics, who are really Moabite, think they're niggers. And every time that emanates out their mouth, they're giving the sovereignty to him, and he becomes the lord of the land, landlord. White means sovereign, so you need to know that. So when you call the European white man, you're saying he's the sovereign. So when he acts like God, don't get mad at him, because you made him. And you keep making him God, so don't complain about what he does when you declare him God, when you call him white man. Instead of telling the truth, he's a European. So if you don't want to tell the truth, why should he? He's fun being king. Oh, excuse me.
I got it now. I brought that up, which, as you can see, there's a lot of information that we don't know that we need to know. So people spend time trying to do research just to bring little things like we're bringing to you now to open your mind. But that's another lesson. It really is. It's not. That's not what this lesson is about. But you still need to know it because it's very, very important. Yes.
No, you speaking of little bits of information. I remember speaking with you. You was telling me about Baltimore being
Baltimore,
right.
Baltimore.
Right, and then you were saying something about heal, and then healing is making the connect. Like in certain things, in talking to you, I noticed how you made certain connections with words. How do you, you know, like that bits of information? How do I do that? Yeah, how do you, is it like, I mean?
Because I recognize that I am the mother, and we are the mothers and fathers of civilization. So when you know that and you read things, you connect them in that fashion.
So you make the connections like that in
well, also in history. I mean,
on some of the products that I carry. Anybody seen any of the tapes I've done?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anybody saw the Cosmic Memory?
No.
That was the latest. And I do have 3 copies of the last lecture I did dealing with color vibration and dreams. You don't want to miss this particular DVD because it is actually very heavy and very important to you. On that DVD, I talk about, how many of y'all heard about the violet flame?
Yeah, you spoke on that.
I have about 3 charts left on the violet flame. These are techniques that you could use to protect yourself and to make things happen in your life. It's up to you. Just like the brother said, your thoughts are everything. Violet flame chart. Also on the DVD, Cosmic Memory, I talked a little bit about color vibrations and how to use them in certain rituals. This is the visualization technique for anyone that may be looking for a mate, to attract the correct mate. This is a chart to tell you how to do that. There are certain color vibrations that you can attract any person that is vibrating or magnetized to you by using certain colors. Also, on the back, there's a secondary chart visualization in front of you, in front of the person you wish to transmit a message to. Sky blue is the color of transmissions or communication. That's where communication takes place, in the sky. So you could visualize those colors surrounding the person you want to communicate with. Now these techniques show you how to deal not with the person's mentality, because if you're dealing with a person, especially black folks, most black people are bipolar or schizophrenic. So if you're dealing with the mental capabilities of the person, they have the ability to reject things that are good for them, just like we reject the food that we eat that is good for us, and eat poison. So your mind rejects certain things based on programming. But this chart shows you how to reach above the person's mind and into their God mind or their oversoul. Everyone has an oversoul where their thoughts linger above them. And you can communicate with their oversoul where they have no chance of saying no. to your request or your transmission. Oversoul to oversoul, surrounding yourself in sky blue. And I'm not going to give you the whole ritual up here. You have to buy the chart. Or get the DVDs. Okay? Chart is 10. There's the color, color, vibration, and food, which is the colors on the back. You have to, if you study colors or get the DVD that I have, it'll teach you about all the different colors and how to use them. Stay away from chicken. Chickens have mustard yellow chakra system, which deals with fear. And if you take the feathers off a chicken, it's yellow. So people who eat chicken, which you've been eating all your life, basically, and you have a lot of fear in you. Most genetically altered animals also have a mustard yellow chakra, like cows and many others. But this one shows you the type of food and the color vibration of the food. And you could use your mental capabilities to transform any type of food that you may be eating, even if it is poison and stuff like jelly beans. You could take different colored jelly beans and visualize them as a piece of fruit. Understand that. So this chart deals with that, and this DVD that I have. And last but not least, this is a thought buster. I have a friend that makes them for me. Inside, this is actually made of fiberglass, which is inorganic material. When you mix inorganic material with organic material, you come up with something called orgon. So we devise these orgon devices, which is you have a copper coil in the middle with an amethyst through the copper coil, magnets, copper, and inorganic material. And when put together, it forms what's known as orgon energy. If you saw any of my lectures, I talked about orgon energy. So this device takes negative energy through the bottom, cleanses it through the crystal, and projects up positive energy, somewhere around the radius of 100 feet. You can put these in your house, or you can carry it around. They have small ones also, but I only have these big ones today. So orgon energy is very important because you also have something called deadly orgon energy. You go to work every day, and the people in your job walk past your desk or talk to you, and their thoughts attach to your aura, and you bring it home in your household and around you, and you walk around with these things attached to your aura. This gets rid of it. This also gets rid of sickness. Very positive energy. Okay? Let's see what else I got here.
How much
So
is that?
this one is $20. Also, it's an archetype. Archetypes have energies within themselves. You can take an ankh, and it doesn't matter what you make it out of, it still has that ankh energy in it, based on the shape. This is a nurturing energy. Anybody know what it's shaped like? Have an idea of what this is shaped like? Right. Has a very powerful nurturing energy. All right? So, I'm going to give it up and let Taj and them come up. And if you want any of these charts, I'll have a few, like I said, of the pink flame and the violet flame, only about 2 or 3 left. And 3 of the lectures that I did on color vibration. It comes with 1 DVD, 2 CDs. It's $20. Positive information. All right?
Thank you, brother.
All right.
So the DVD has all the stuff that you have on the chart.
Yes.
Are you doing anything? Come on.
Which one? The chart or the DVD?
Are you doing anything?
Anything
Coming up
recent?
next. Are you
Chart
trying
on
to
the
promote
DVD,
yourself? Come up and say a few words.
Nothing.
Come up and say a few words.
That's the DVD of the lecture.
Nothing recently. Camera
Nothing?
stuff.
Anything you know? You got anything coming up that you're doing?
I'm doing something at Groups tomorrow,
Which one?
but you know,
That's the
Why
violet
don't you
flame.
introduce- will you introduce yourself real quick?
That's the violet flame.
on camera.
Food.
Just tell me who you are, what you do. Look, all, you know, then we get flyers and stuff, what you do, you know, and
Okay.
that you have different, you know, you're an entertainer, what you do, and what kind of message you have, and you know, you do a number of things, and that they can look forward to, you know,
Sure, okay.
through the self-improvement learning
Right.
center.
All I have left is
You'll
charts.
have your
Anybody
flyer
want the chart?
available.
Let me get a chart. And I'm gonna, because I know
Yeah.
you're rushing out.
Yeah. I'll see you on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen one of the sisters' shows, and the sister's a very, very, very good entertainer. And I just wanted her to come up and just promote herself. I know she's a little camera shy, but I just wanted her to come up and promote herself a little bit.
Yeah, camera shy.
I mean, she's not doing an act yet. I mean,
All right.
Just introduce yourself, sis, tell us what you do, and then.
Hi, please and blessings everyone. My name is M.S.T. I'm a singer, songwriter, arranger. I do my thing. I get the Holy Ghost, or whatever you want to call it, spirit, and I just pull different things out the ether. So nothing is really pre-planned. When I get on stage, it's pretty much impromptu. So look out for me. Check me out on www.myspace.com/I'm-A-Soul. So check me out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And thank you, Akbar, for having me.
All right, like I said, what we'll do, through, you have my card, I have my, when we give have a flyer out. It's 32 health tips. This is the same thing that I just went over. I read it, but you have it, so you can, I'll give everybody one, you'll have it so you can read it. Okay, so it's the 32 health tips for the wise. Okay? Is there anybody else in the audience, anybody doing anything, anybody got any type of business, anything you promoting, anything? Anybody have anything to say? But like I said, we're a family here, we want to look out for each other, we want to use every opportunity to support each other. Is there anybody else doing anything? Okay, so what I want to do is, without further ado, I just wanted to...
I want to ask you, can I ask a question?
Sure, yes ma'am. Yes ma'am.
Brother Akbar just explained about the health and the body parts, correct?
Yes.
And how it related to astrology.
Yes.
Now, I'm just, so I'm going to ask this question, because I was just going to bring that in. I know he did a wonderful job because I came in, and I knew that you were going to do that, even though he's doing his studies, and he's a nutritional scientist, we're going to call him. I know you found that very interesting, as you said, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of that, when you really think about your health problems, you will find it to be true with yourself or with other people. So, because it is the science. There's no holes in science. Science is what it is. Science means sense. And conscience, or conscience, means conscience. So, that's what this is all about. And this is the information that we ought to have already known. So, we now introduce Akbar, the nutritional scientist. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. After the day,
great, thank you.
applying the science to